There's an increasing political focus on investment, which was present from the beginning in the Juncker Commission with the political guidelines, which focused a lot on strengthening competitiveness and stimulating investment for the purpose of job creation. A whole series of areas were mentioned, including infrastructure, education, digitalization, and many other fields we discussed this morning. Promotion of the right regulatory environment and climate of entrepreneurship and job creation, support to SMEs. And this is reflected in a number of political documents, or in all political documents and actions and activities since then, including in the broader macroeconomic or economic priorities, which are laid down in the so-called annual growth survey in autumn of every year, which is the starting point of the European semester. And those have confirmed the three major priorities already valid the year before, but the first one, to boost investment, through a couple of measures which we will discuss. The second one, to pursue structural reforms to modernize our economies. And we have discussed and heard this morning that those two go together and have to go together. And the third one, responsible fiscal policy. In this context, I would also like to mention that there has been, under the new programming period for the structural funds, an increased orientation to these political priorities, and that's, as we heard again this morning, an ongoing discussion with a midterm review, which we will go through soon, of the multi-annual financial framework and the discussion also on the interlinkage and synergies between these different tools. And this implies a close linkage with the European semester process of economic policy coordination. So the three key priorities of the investment plan, Juncker plan, as it was discussed this morning, is in principle to mobilize resources, to support the real economy, as second and third, to tackle remaining barriers to investment. And I would like to say a couple of words on the background of, around those three major pillars of the plan, and then go to a couple of practical tools and policy actions and financial instruments that support those. So it was discussed this morning that one of the key issues is the investment gap in the European Union. We are comparing here the evolution of EU and US gross fixed capital formation in manufacturing sectors before and after the crisis. And you do see that there's a disconnect after the crisis between the two lines, the red one for the US and the blue one for the EU. That's the famous investment gap we are talking about. And this investment gap, as was mentioned this morning, holds across the EU, it holds across countries, it holds across sectors. It holds for the Netherlands as well as for Romania, with different priorities to tackle and different problems to address maybe. But it is a common, let's say, common feature of the current situation, the challenges we are facing. There's a long list of other challenges which go down, which go together with this. We have heard already this morning that this happens despite the fact that savings are high, that institutional actors, funds in many member states do have a lot of funds for investment, that returns are outside the European Union, or risks outside the European Union, returns have probably decreased or risks increased, and yet we find it difficult, and in all member states it is being found difficult to mobilize those resources for productive investment and for local, regional or national investment in manufacturing or other sectors. This one was here taken as an example. I move from here to the second point, which I want to describe with a slogan: matching demands, if you want, supporting the real economy. What do I mean by this? I mean by this to reply to the needs, to the demands at sectoral level on issues we have heard, to support to SMEs, the various sectors: health, education, environment, digital infrastructure, energy, transport or innovation. and also to support at regional level countries, all regions in need of financing. So we do have this slide is taken from a joint presentation by the EIB, EIF, and the Commission. The figures were mentioned already a couple of times today. 54 projects in the pipeline, 76 billion committed, and most member states having developed projects. We heard Lithuania and Latvia have some in the pipeline too. Romania, they are being developed in Romania. Why do I want to show this slide and mention this as a second big challenge? Because we have to reply to specific challenges to SMEs to secure financing, access to financing, and we have to ensure that, let's say, there's effective uptake in all member states. Also, you see here that in particular Romania is on that map, and as it's included in presentations for the time being, still a white spot on the map. So what are specific difficulties for SMEs in Europe for access, for investment, say? One of the things we have heard this morning is particular difficulties in access to finance. That's true, but this access to finance, let's say, is probably not the whole of the story, and we have heard that there are a lot of other challenges SMEs are facing, which are interlinked. The one big challenge we discussed this morning is first the capacity to develop a good project in the first place before looking for its financing. So, and with this goes the capacity for cross-regional or international cooperation, for strategic planning, for development, project development, design, as it were, impact assessment. SMEs also do face a number of other challenges which are related to innovation and R&D capacity, which is more difficult for them to support the finance, digitalization, attracting and retaining skilled workers, which are key to competitiveness, again, as we have heard this morning, and also with regard to the integration in European and global value chain, single market integration and internationalization. We have heard again that the figure of Romanian companies involved in external trade is low, relatively low, and has to be brought up, although export performance is positive and strongly improving. But this again is not a specific challenge to Romania. It's equally a challenge to French SMEs, which are equally, let's say, not very well presented in number when it comes to export performance. Those who make the first step often develop quickly, but how to make that first step to internationalize or to integrate, that's a more difficult issue. And there are other challenges, obviously, as regards administrative burden, transparency, simplification, legislation adapted to the needs of SMEs, which may be different from those of larger companies, and also, as we see from surveys and others, an over-reliance or over-dependence on traditional financing tools, equity or debt financing, and less access to alternative forms of financing, crowdfunding or others, which we are developing. I'm mentioning those because the policy actions at all levels, national and European level, should reply obviously to those challenges. And there are particular challenges for Romania. What's the situation in Romania? As we said, there may be reasons, we discussed this morning, why the situation is as it is. Now, as the Commissioner stated in his speech this morning, the first message on Romania is a positive one, namely one of positive development, of positive export performance, macroeconomic stabilization, and a positive economic outlook, and export performance, thriving ICT sector, and supportive ICT infrastructures overall. And on top of that, according to our indicators, number one in the European Union in terms of entrepreneurial spirit and the potential, if I may say so, for entrepreneurship. So therefore, the Commissioner mentioned it in our papers, Romania is being quoted as maybe the key candidate, or one of the major the key candidate for Europe's major hub for startups. Obviously, the funds that are there And now we come to the problematic side. I have mentioned this before, as it is a quote from the European Semester Country Report. On the problematic side, there is a number of remaining weaknesses or challenges in the areas discussed this morning: business environment, efficiency of public administration, administrative capacity, and access to venture capital and capital markets, which all should help to overcome one big issue in Romania, which is the under-exploitation of available funds. Not only EFSI, but many other funds, as we have heard, as you're well aware, including the structural funds or others, which I will show in a second. And I want to say that the access to finance is maybe not, we cannot just mention this from the surveys we are conducting among SMEs in Romania. Yes, debt financing is a key issue, but access to finance is not seen as the biggest, as the major obstacle of Romanian companies for development. The two obstacles which I mentioned before that are finding customers first, and second, availability of skilled staff or experienced managers. So this is to be seen relative. It's a problem which SMEs can deal with to a certain extent. And the third area, which I want to call tackling barriers, and what I just mentioned is basically already is included in this slide here. We conduct together with the ECB annual surveys on the main barriers to access to finance for SMEs, and those mentioned in addition to financing constraints are regulatory constraints, macroeconomic uncertainty, and single market barriers varying across countries, as I said, and the lack of access of venture capital. And the Juncker plan is in principle the idea to tackle all those three challenges in one tool, and to mobilize additional funding, 350 billion euros, including the leverage effect, if you have heard, which is a significant amount. Second, making a real impact on the structural economy. That's the reason why the investment plan and the selection of projects focuses on what was called economically viable projects, projects which do have an impact on growth and jobs in the member states. And third, tackling the regulatory barriers or other barriers and improving the business environment and public administration, because without those, it's hard to see how SMEs, let's say, can be more, and other companies can be more successful in making their point when applying for a loan, and then, let's say, overcoming the obstacles they're facing currently. The specificities or the key features of the FC here is that it's rather flexible, it covers broad areas, it can be, it's market-driven without political influence. There's no pre-selection in terms of geographic terms or sectoral terms. Economic viability, additionality was mentioned, and projects can be pooled across themes or across regions. So SMEs with small projects can pool together to make a joint proposals under, let's say, when supported by a number of promoters. And as was mentioned also, by definition, this tool has a focus on SMEs. Second issue, and this is something you will find in this flyer and on the website, which I will mention in a second. You see here that the FC is one of many funds available at European level to the support of SMEs. And this table gives you an overview. I will not be able to let's say, go through it in detail here. But it shows you, as I said, it's a flexible, broad tool, up to your imagination, basically, that the instruments cover a large number of topics and target groups and stages in which the SMEs in need of financing may be. So the first question, first line, the so-called easy financial instrument for social change and innovation, relates to a question earlier this morning on microfinance. How can a young startup or entrepreneur or a solo entrepreneur get financing. You do have specific tools of microfinance which are addressed to micro enterprises only. And this tool also covers social enterprises who otherwise may have difficulties to get access to funding. Our DG deals with another tool which is called COSME, a financial instrument for competitiveness and SMEs, which basically provides loan guarantees to micro companies or SMEs, or equity financing through the expansion stage of SMEs. You have a specific program on Creative Europe, and maybe, I don't know whether that covers media activities, but which relates to cultural and creative sector activities and finances those. You do have one under Horizon 2020, the research program, similar to the one for COSME, which funds independently of the size of the company, specific activities focused on research and innovation and startups. And you do have, going down the list, the big funds, not only the EFSI, which will be discussed in a second in more detail, but also the structural funds and others. So you do have a quite long list, confusing list, I agree, which offers a lot of choice, which offers flexibility, and that's what the Commissioner, I think, mentioned this morning when she said that these tools are largely under development, and the way they do interact and the way you can exploit synergies is something which is maybe not something written in stone, but which is under development and which is to be developed further. So you can use all of this. In addition, and the beauty of this folder is that it contains a link to a website, which is called access2finance.eu, which is a website with an EU map. You click on a country, and for a country, without knowing the details of the funds you want to apply for, you can tell who you are, what type of project you have, and in principle this website is supposed to give you two things. First, give you a list of contacts of funds you can use and intermediaries you can contact to finance your projects, and second, guide you to something we have set up, a one-stop shop, a network of so-called Enterprise Europe network, which is a network of advisors in the member states, which should help you also with the selection of the appropriate funding tools or support mechanisms for your specific needs. And I'm being told by colleagues that in Romania this network has work advisors in 17 towns already in Romania, so which should be of help and which can guide you through this. There's a long list of other actions. I will just leave it there to support SMEs. If it's not only linked to financing, we do have guidance on development of business angel activities and how SMEs could make use of business angels either for financing or for support with the, let's say, setting up a business plan, the first step to develop a good project. We have a Small Business Act under which the Commission promotes, let's say, basically that legislation takes into account the needs of SMEs, the so-called Think Small First principle. For all legislation, we have to do SME tests and check what is the outcome, in particular of SMEs. We do have actions to deepen the single market and force single market integration and open up, let's say, chances in the single market also for SMEs, their information tools, etc. How they can make use of those, and in many other areas I can't go in now. So I wanted to draw your attention, let's say, to this web tool and hope that it's of use. I know, and the colleagues probably will show this, that under EFSI there are more specific similar tools, guidance tools developed, which help you more specifically for access to information on the use of EFSI. Before, what I forgot to say, but when I presented the slide with the intermediaries and the setup, how we mobilize resources, those funds are always implemented in a way that you can apply in your home country. You don't have to go to Brussels, you don't have to need to know necessarily the specificities of the programs as such. There are help structures there which should guide you, as we said, and to make efficient use. This brings us back to the discussion this morning. As was said already, we believe that this is a key element in improving the uptake and effective use of financing at European level. This brings us back basically to the key findings of the so-called European Semester Country Report, which does analyze the performance of the economies, including for Romania in detail. And that report stressed that the issues to be tackled in Romania, they are those mentioned this morning: improve the business environment, efficient services, e-government, development of priority sectors according to the National Development Plan, etc. Transpose the new Public Procurement Directive and continue the public procurement reform, as this will also help, let's say, or strengthen or promote possible public-private partnerships, as we discussed, and overall increase funds absorption. Improve administrative capacity, legislative predictability, and strategic planning of investment projects, and provide support to project preparation and implementation, as this will increase the chances of getting loans and of access to finance, and improve public support for educational programs, entrepreneurship, digital skills, and other key factors of competitiveness. And I'm mentioning those as this is seen as creating key synergies with the financial instruments in place, ensuring the necessary flexibility and take up at member state level. And I leave it there and thank you.